Hello there, my name is Dan and I'm a very keen home grower of fruit and vegetables. Over the last few years I've been working on a partial self-sufficiency project here in Essex, UK, and the main purpose of my channel is to show you how to grow your own fruit and vegetables no matter what size garden, allotment or growing space you do indeed have. So if you like my work, please feel free to like and share, and if you'd like to be notified of any further videos I put up, please feel free to subscribe. People start gardening and sometimes they stop gardening. So today I'm going to be making a video on how to not stop gardening and how to keep your enthusiasm going to make the most of your gardening. The first step is to fit gardening into your life. This will differ from person to person and will depend on things such as other commitments, family, work, working hours, other things you have to get done, other interests and other things that are taking your time, okay? It will depend on your means, how much money you've got to dedicate to gardening, and what you need to do is tailor-make it to your own individual situation, okay? For example, you may not have time for a medium or large project, but you may have time for a planter, a 2x1 metre planter for example, or some pots where which you grow some soft fruit such as blueberries, where during certain months of the summer you can pick some lovely blueberries to have with your breakfast that morning. And something like that you can really put into your life without it becoming overwhelming, which if you do loads and get loads of things in that you then cannot look after, you may not be able to fit that into your life and thus end up giving up because you get overwhelmed. The next step is to set realistic expectations. If you're a very busy person with many other commitments, the chances are you will not be able to put too much time into your gardening. So what you need to make sure you do is be realistic of where you are and what you can achieve. That doesn't mean that you set yourself low goals, but set yourself very achievable goals. So for example, if you've only got half an hour per week that you can dedicate to gardening, the planter example I spoke of a moment ago, something like that, really make that planter good, really devote some time and energy into that planter to get it as good as you possibly can. If you take this approach, I believe you will have better results than if you go around looking at other people's gardens that are immaculately kept. You go turning on the TV and seeing beautifully kept huge gardens, because the owners of these gardens may have more time than you. They may have been working on this garden for years. They may have even been in your position once, but you're now seeing them 25, 30 years into the journey. So set yourself realistic expectations. This brings me on to the next point of patience. Now, with regards to gardening, it can be very difficult to be patient. For example, one wants to get their fruits off of the tree. When am I going to get my first apples off of this tree? And then it doesn't blossom, you don't get fruits, and therefore one can sometimes feel disappointed. But remind yourself that gardening is a long-term approach, okay? Your soil structure needs to be built. You need to learn the knowledge of the individual plants, and what you need to do is set yourself out for the long haul, if you will. Put your stall out for a few years and then you should see some good results than if you expect them overnight. Regularly look at encouragement. So if you put on the television and you see a grand landscape, so you don't have necessarily that grand landscape at your disposal, but you could employ some of the things you see in your own gardening experience and get encouraged and inspired by that. You know, if you turn on a TV program and you see something really beautiful, you think, oh, I'd like to have some of that in my garden. Maybe you see a beautiful plum tree and you think, yes, I'm going to have a dwarf plum tree in my own garden because my garden isn't big enough to have a half standard or a full-size tree. Get inspired by what you see. You will make mistakes, you will lose plants, you will get crop failures, plants will get diseases, okay? This is part of it. Farmers get crop failures, okay? It happens. What you need to do is to accept that not everything will go your way, okay? And take gardening as an average, okay? If you set 10 different seeds and you get success of say 6 or 7, that's a good ratio, okay? So what you need to do is to don't expect too much, okay, and be once again realistic, because gardening is one thing that can at sometimes go either way. Make systems for your gardening. For example, once a month maybe you turn your compost heap, okay? So you schedule the 15 minutes or so in your schedule that you need to do that. Watering your plants, okay? Let's say every other night you water your plants during the summer, and that takes you 15 minutes. Leave some time for that, okay? If necessary, write it down so you don't forget. Grow reliable crops. For example, something such as spinach, chard, potatoes or raspberries will be easier to produce a crop than something such as mangoes or bananas here in the UK, all right? More suited to the climate in which you're growing them. That way you'll be more likely to get success. And this is particularly important if you're a busy person, new to gardening, and you want to get a good reliable crop to get the snowball rolling, if you will, of success in your gardening. Think of the other benefits of gardening as well as producing crops. So, your fitness. Gardening can be great for fitness outside, with nature. You're doing things for the birds and the bees. It's not all just about growing the crops and producing, okay? The time that you can think and reflect about other things whilst you are gardening. So really think of the other benefits of gardening as well as just crop production. Keep records of your gardening. An example of this could be weighing the fruit that you produce. For example, one day maybe you harvest a kilo, 2.2 pounds of strawberries. Write that down, and that really will be nice to look back at and go, yes, I achieved then. You can take photos as well, either in physical form or on your phone, for example, just so you've got a record of what you've produced, and this can be very encouraging to look at. Don't create a monster. An example of this could be getting too many plants, too many specimens that you are unable to give the amount of time for to care for. Or maybe something such as blueberries, you get many different varieties, many plants, and you do not grow them in the ericaceous acidic growing medium, okay? Don't create something that's unwieldy. Create yourself something that's beautiful and within your limitations to look after in terms of time, means, and your physical condition, okay? And that way you're more likely to get success. So basically create something that is manageable for you. Expand your gardening horizons. Now I'm going to contradict myself to a degree here, but sometimes when one is gardening they can get stuck in a rut, so to speak. For example, one can end up growing the same things year after year and thinking, is there more to this than this? And quite often there can be. So for example, if you feel the need to grow some exotics, why not? Many of you are aware that I grow things such as banana plants and also orange plants and also some other things as well. Now, the advice I generally give people, unless they're really interested in growing exotics particularly, I normally say get your basics covered, get the grounds laid first, okay? So get your reliable, tried and tested crops going first, your successes there, and then if it's your thing, consider adding some exotics to the mix. Have standby plants. Now what I mean by this is have some reliable plants that are ready to put in case of crop failures. Some of you may remember my failed melon project last year, which I knew the plants were not going to produce. So what I did was I removed them and I reset the ground with some plug plants I had all ready to go in. That way you're not wasting the time or the ground, so you can still get a crop. So have something standby ready to go in case of crop failure. Keep written records of your gardening. For example, if you get a good crop of runner beans in a particular location, make a note of where they were placed in your garden or your allotment at that time. Make a note of the variety. You may consider growing them again in the future. The same if something does not do so well, okay? Make a note of where it was in your garden. Make a note of what went wrong with it. What do you think you did wrong? If you've read up on it and you've realised, maybe write it down, okay? Overwatering, underwatering, the plant being in the wrong place for what it needs, the wrong growing medium. Keep records, and that way you can look back over them and learn from your successes and your failures. Talk to other gardeners. I think this can be very useful because you can share ideas such as what grows well in a particular area, certain plants, certain crops that do well. You can build a sense of community around your interests, and I think that when people with a common interest can share ideas, it can be really beneficial to help pull each other through, and for many it can make it more likely that you will continue with this brilliant interest. Be aware of your limitations. Now, this is not to promote negativity, but to promote realism. An example of this could be if one lives in a flat or an apartment or rents a room and doesn't have a garden, doesn't have an allotment, and is restricted to growing on a windowsill, then make the most of those windowsills, okay? If one is disabled, if one has joint pains, bad back, bad knees, one needs to cater their gardening to their own self, okay? For example, if you've got mobility issues, then maybe you would have to have your plants close to you. If you can't bend down to tend to plants on the ground, maybe a raised bed would be more beneficial for you. But be realistic as to your expectations and also your limitations, and that way you can still incorporate gardening into your life, taking into account the restrictions you have, but still enjoying your hobby. We will continue with the fireworks. Look at other gardens, look at other people's gardens, and really learn from them. Take a look and think, why is that garden like that? What has that person done to get that effect? And then you can learn from that, and then you can think about how you could maybe put a little bit of that in your own garden and mix it with other ideas you get, and then you can end up with your own representation of yours and others' experiences, and you could create something rather unique and something rather beautiful. And one day yours could be the garden that other people are looking at and learning from. Don't be afraid to take a break. Sometimes you may need to just take a week off of gardening to recharge your batteries, just to switch off from it for a bit and think about other things. And that space and that time that you give yourself, some great ideas may come to you. A bit of relaxation and rest and time away from something can sometimes really spur on some great creativity, okay? And that way you're more likely to avoid burnout and come back with renewed energy and enthusiasm to go on your next step of your gardening journey. Be happy where you are with your gardening. So if you're at the start, if you're into your gardening a little bit, or you are very experienced, be happy with the place that you're at, because there's always room for improvement no matter where you are. You can always learn more, and you can always look back over things that didn't quite go so well, or indeed things that did go well. And if you're happy where you are, then that way you're more likely to enjoy the journey and enjoy the experience, because gardening in general is a long-term thing, and being happy where you are will help you to continue on into the future, making progress and learning and producing better and better crops or flowers or whatever it is you are growing. Please write in the comments section below what you do to maintain your gardening enthusiasm, and if you like my work, please feel free to like and share, and if you'd like to be notified of any further videos I put up, please feel free to subscribe. So enjoy your weekend, and I'll see you in the next video.